Hello, and welcome to another video. And today will be a different video, right? In that I will not be rambling about a specific subject, but rather I'll be talking about this, which is the MiSTer. And so I got the MiSTer, I think 3-4 days ago, and this is gonna be a first impressions video, not a review per se, because really I need more time with it to review it. But in terms of as first impressions goes, it's looking really good. Now I'll go over obviously cost and general impression, how to configure the thing, how it compares to the real thing, which is back there, as you can see. And yeah, like just general stuff. So let's get started. Right, so first of all, the first thing that really impressed me about the MiSTer is how small it is. Like, here's my hand. Not particularly big, but as you can see, it is exceedingly small. I guess I have a good comparison here. This is my phone. So it's like a regular Android phone. As you can see, it is the same width as the phone and a bit shorter. So yeah, like really small. I couldn't tell from the pictures that I saw online. So this was a nice surprise. I got the one with the I/O board. So up top here, you'll see that I have a VGA port right here for analog video out, and I have the 3.5mm jack right here for audio out, and also the user I/O port where you can plug in the snack, so you have very low latency on input. And I really didn't see any cores that required the additional RAM board that you can get with the digital I/O one. So I kind of went with the analog video because I have a CRT back there, as you can see there, and also I have another one that's right here that I'll turn the camera and show in a bit. And now, why did I get the MiSTer? Well, I obviously like real hardware a whole bunch. I have all these consoles back here. Let me get two of them real fast. So there I have an original model, the American NES, and also that's a Super Famicom from Japan. And I have an N64 right here, as you guys can see, with a Quicksilver drive right here. Pretty cool. And also I have a Model 1 Sega Genesis, which is, ironically enough, like my best functioning console, so right here. And also an EverDrive on top. So I have EverDrives for all the consoles that I play most regularly, also for the Famicom and for the NES. And you may ask, well, if you have all these, then why get a MiSTer? That is a fair question. Now, the first thing that I will say, I'm not huge on collecting the games, I mean, at one point I may have been like wanting to do that. Like, it'd be cool to have all the cartridges, to have like a shelf back there with all the cartridges and everything, as you see in these all other channels on YouTube. But it's a very expensive endeavor, as you guys understand, and even more so lately, where it seems like retro games, they have gone up in price very significantly. And so it is a hard ask for anyone to like invest or spend, depending on how you think about that, a good chunk of your monthly income on buying old cartridges and whatnot. So a very sensible solution, of course, is to just get an EverDrive. Not exactly cheap, if I'm honest with you, but compared to getting the actual cartridges, very, very cheap by comparison. And you just stick an SD card up top, you put the ROMs in there, and there you go. Now you can play every single game on original hardware. So that's solved. But then there's an issue, which is the output. So if you like doing video capture, which I like doing a whole lot, I used to stream back then. Not anymore though, but there will be a video on that in the future. But if you like capturing footage from your consoles, or even just playing at a high quality, you have a second issue to contend with, which is like my Model 1 Genesis here is really cool that the output here is also prepared for RGB. So I have a special converter where I just plug this into the converter, and then that spits out a component video. The YPBPR, right, is the red, green, and blue jacks. I put them on TV, perfect picture quality, very good. Now, how do you capture that? Well, you have to have a converter. You can use the FrameMeister, you can use the RetroTink. Personally, I have the OSSC. And then you put the component video in there. It outputs HDMI, you put that on a capture card, and there you go, have the image on your PC. So pretty cool. Now, this is one console, right? Fortunately, the Famicom, which is back there, also has RGB out. But ironically enough, the N64 doesn't have RGB out. And so what can I do here? Well, I have to mod my N64 so it can output RGB. Same thing for the NES. And this is not even counting consoles that I don't have that I wish I had. For example, the TurboGrafx 16 or PC Engine, depending on where you're from. Very hard to find those here in Brazil because it wasn't like a very popular console over here. So I'd have to import that most likely from Japan. And then you have to see if like there's the correct output for the TV because this is analog video. So there's all these complications that are associated with that. And obviously the Neo Geo is another one that I'd like to have in my collection, but once again, very expensive stuff. And then you have to talk about getting the ROM card for it, like the EverDrive, which is once again not cheap. Another one that I don't have and I wish I had is the Sega Saturn. So I'd have the Saturn is not that hard to find, but then you have to mod it so you can like use a satiator or something to play all the games and everything. Now the PlayStation is pretty easy. In fact, I have a PlayStation on that cabinet down there. I have a few more in there. I have a second N64, 2 additional SNESs, a PS3, ironically enough, and a PS1, and a Master System as well. Now there's hooking everything up. That's another thing. So it gets pretty tiring for you to just, I want to play my Genesis now, and then you go back in there and you plug everything. You're playing the Genesis and you're like, well, I guess I'd like to play Mario 64 now. And now there you go. You pull the TV and you pull all the cables and you put the correct cables. Oh, and then you may say, well, why don't you use one of those switches? Because there are these switches that you can just put everything and then you switch the channel basically, and it outputs the correct signal to the TV. And sure, you can do that. But you know, my point here is that when you start adding up everything that you need to have a nice experience, it is a lot of stuff. You first have to have the system, and then you have to have, let's assume the EverDrive. Let's not talk about having the actual games because that's a whole other ballpark. So you have to have the system, you have to have the EverDrive, you have to hook that up somehow to your TV. If the console doesn't have native RGB output, you're possibly going to have to mod that into the console. So it's just a ton of stuff. And when you start really calculating how much that's going to run you, it's going to be a lot of money, a whole lot of money. And so it's been a few years since I have stopped collecting actual physical hardware. I think the last console I bought was the NES. I bought it on 2017. So it's been what? 7 years, give or take, right? And then I kind of realized what I was signing up to, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should stop right now because I haven't spent that much money yet. And so finally, I heard about MiSTer last year, as it is here, and I thought, hey, this is pretty cool because it emulates hardware using the FPGA, right, rather than emulating software. And if you have played games in a more native capacity, I'd say, especially doing speedrunning. So I did speedrunning very intensely about 10 years ago or so. And so you can really tell if you have experience with the system with a particular game and you were used to playing on a CRT, and if you go from that to playing on a computer on the emulator, it's not the same thing. It's very noticeable. Now, if you don't know any better, that's fine, right? You can just emulate on your PC or you can use a RetroPie. That's okay. It is a decent enough experience. But once you get to like this level of, it's one of those things that the more you know, the less you wish you knew, because the more you are aware of the little inaccuracies that software emulation has, you get bothered by it. You're like, this is not the same as playing on the actual hardware. And then you boot up the emulator, you see the game running there, and then you get the Genesis is a console that I really really like. It's my second console. Actually, I had an Atari 2600, and I had this one, and so there's several games I know very well in here on the Genesis, and it is bothersome to see the little inaccuracies on the emulator that you don't see on the actual hardware. Not to mention the Yamaha sound chip, which is like hard to emulate, and the sound quality on the Genesis is just incredible, depending on the game that you choose, of course. And so when I heard of MiSTer and like this hardware emulation, which I'm not going to go into what's an FPGA because I'm not actually that well versed in the thing really, but it's kind of a reprogrammable CPU if you want to think about that, or a circuit board, or you can just program the individual chips so they could, like, for example, remove the cover here, and then you see all the chips are inside the motherboard here, and then you reprogram them using Verilog or using, what's the name of the other language? I forget now. There's like two main languages that people use, FPGAs. And then you reprogram the chips themselves, like the memory and the CPU and the graphical units and everything. And then you write that to the FPGA, and it behaves almost as if it were the original hardware. It's not the same thing, right? So there is some level of inaccuracy, to be sure. It varies core by core, so it's not like uniformly the same. There are cores that are more accurate than others. But in any case, it is supposedly a more accurate experience than doing software emulation. All right. So that is, there's other thing that I didn't mention, which is like a malfunction. So this is one of my biggest pet peeves with the N64. This is my second N64. I have another one back in there, and both don't work. It's just super frustrating. Like, they boot up this one, it boots up, like for example Mario 64, I'll play for like 20 minutes, and then it just hangs up, it just stops. I have to disassemble it, see if it's a capacitor or something, but I'm not into the business of like actually fixing the hardware, and more like just play the game. And so it is frustrating when you buy something and it doesn't outright work. So there's that. All right, so I picked up the camera, it's in my hand here. So in terms of physical installation on the MiSTer, it is not too difficult, so I'll try and show it to you. So right here I have the RJ45 network ports. Basically, you can stick up a network cable in there, or you can use Wi-Fi as well. I've had not that much success with Wi-Fi. I think the adapter I'm using is not supported. In any case, it's no problem. And then on the back here, this is something that, the reason I'm showing this is because I didn't really find that many pictures online. I got a bit confused, so maybe this will help you out. So it is interesting, there's these two DC ports here for power, and what they sell there, I'm gonna show you the site in a bit. I use MiSTer Add-ons, which is a US-based vendor, if I'm not mistaken, to buy this. And there's like this Y cable that you just plug in both ends on these DC entries, and then you go to the power outlet, and so it works pretty well. Now you have an HDMI out right here. You're gonna have an HDMI out no matter what, really, and you can. The nice thing about this is that you can just like plug an HDMI cable in here, and to a capture card. They have an Elgato right there, right here, as you can see. And so I basically just plug in the HDMI cable in here, and then on the Elgato, and then it just works out of the box. Finally, you have the VGA port in here for analog video out. If you're using a monitor, I guess that's fine. But if you're using a CRT, this is a 29-inch Samsung, which is my daily driver for now. I used to have these. Oh, I still have it actually. There's my dog, as you can see. That's a Philips. And as I found, very interestingly, the Philips has some sync issues with the sync on green. toggle switch that I'm going to show in a bit. And so it would like get some desynced image, especially when you change course and wait to be about 2 minutes until it got in sync or after I booted the game. And so it would make it very hard to navigate the menus. Because you could see nothing on the television itself, and so I'd have to use the computer here with the HDMI capture to navigate and choose a game. So that was very obnoxious. Doesn't happen on the Samsung. After some cursory research, it seems like the Philips televisions, maybe not all of them, but some of them have this issue. And so maybe if you have another brand like a Samsung, LG, or Sony, it seems like those work a little better. Now you have the 3.5 millimeter jack, this one right here. And this is like your standard headphone, 3.5 millimeter. And you can just, what I have is a cable that I bought on MiSTer add-ons that plugs in here, and then it splits out on two RCA, white and red for audio, and then you plug that on the TV. And let's see what else. I have the user I/O right here. If you have the snack, which I do have, it's right here. So this is the snack 64. It's the most recent module they have in there. And this allows you to basically plug this into the user I/O, which is a standard USB. And on the other side, you have this HDMI in. This is not actually HDMI. I mean, the cable seems like it's HDMI at least. But then you have these adapters. So I have the snack adapter for the N64 controller right here. And they have these for almost all controllers in there. So if you want to use your Genesis controller or your Super Nintendo or TurboGrafx or whatever, you can do it. And the nice thing about the snacks is that it has very, very low latency. As you guys will see, it is extremely fast, near native. So it's a very nice product. But it's not standard USB, right? So you can't just like get the snack and plug it on the PC. I don't think it will work. And finally, let's see right here. Oh yeah, you have the toggle switch here. This is one that confused me a lot. You see this on-off toggle switch. This is the sync on green stuff. So if you're having sync issues with your TV, you can just toggle this on and then it should stabilize the image. I think that's the idea behind it. Yeah, that's basically it. There's an assortment of USB ports that you can use down here. And you have an SD card slot. You actually have one right here. It's primary SD, and you have a secondary here. And I bought a 1 terabyte SD card, which seems a bit overkill now that I think about it. But what do you know? And you can put all your games in there. It's gonna fit just fine. So let me get this hooked up, and we'll be back with the next part of the video. Alright, on this next part, I'm going to show you guys exactly what I bought, and this is not exactly a recommendation or this is not sponsored, of course, but this is the site that I use, is the MiSTer add-ons. I found some local sellers here in Brazil for the MiSTer. I guess they were imports as well, but they all use the TerraSic, the D10 Nano, right? The FPGA, and then you have an assortment of additional boards that you can use and also the external casing. And the reason I didn't buy it locally is because some of the more recent cores, especially the Saturn one, I believe, they do require some specific RAM modules, the more recent versions. And so, I thought, well, I don't want to risk it. And so if I buy from a quote-unquote reputable seller, then the likelihood that I'll get more modern, more recent stuff is higher. And so right here, what I got was these bundles. So there's a ton of stuff in here. If you would like to build an arcade, there's this JAMA stuff as well. I got this pre-configured bundle right here, right? So you can select your color. I got the black one, because why not? And in terms of style, you can have the digital I/O with two SDRAM slot, so you'd have like 256 megabytes of RAM, I believe, or you can do the analog, which is not exactly selectable right now. I don't know why. Maybe it's out of stock. And then if you select the analog, then you just have 128 megs. However, you do have analog video out, which is nice. Now, as far as my research, went, I didn't find a single core that required the two SDRAM, the SDRAM expansion, right? There is some talk that the Williams arcade, which is like the Mortal Kombat one, may need that, but then there's some talk that those guys actually moved to the Mars project, so I have no idea what's going on in there. In terms of what I want, not that big of a fan of Mortal Kombat, so if it doesn't work, I'm fine with that, to be honest with you. So I got the analog out. Now let's see what else. In terms of power, this was more like me being I was being more cautious than anything. So apparently, if you buy the bundle, it comes with a power supply, but they have this recommendation down here somewhere, which I may or may not find. Oh yeah, upgraded power supply available here. Yeah, so there is this. And this is the one that I got, which has the two DC jacks, which is actually not showing here, which is a different picture than what I got. And what they say here is that if you plug in a lot of stuff inside the MiSTer, like for example, additional hard drives and USB devices and everything, then the default power supply may not be enough for that. And so I was like, you know what, I'm already spending, what was it, $500 or so. It's pretty expensive, as you see. Yeah, $575, and so what's another $17.50 for the power supply? So I got it. Did I need it? I don't know. Maybe not. Let's see what else I got. There's this one, and then the components. Okay, we'll find it. It's no matter. So the other cable that I got is this one, which is a 3.5 millimeter true RCA. I mean, I could easily enough find this cable locally here in Brazil, but it's one of those things. Well, I'm already getting the thing, and I know that this cable will work for a fact, so I got this as well. As you see, it's just a standard 3.5 jack that you just put it on the television, and then let's try and find the website wasn't loading, so I just grabbed the email here with what was shipped to me. And so the other cable that I wanted to show you is this one, which is VGA to YPBPR. It's essentially a VGA to video components out with those three red, green, and blue cables, essentially. So the MiSTer, this one, and then there's this NAX 64, and I got two adapters, one for the N64, another one for the SNES. And since it seems to have worked out just fine, maybe I'll get some additional adapters in the future, but it's nice that I have this going as well. So this was like my complete purchase. It was around, I think, $650 to $700, right around there, which is obviously not cheap. But when you compare that cost to basically anything else, right? Actually buying the consoles and especially buying the EverDrives for everything, and not even putting into the consideration of like modding the consoles so they can output RGB and everything, then the cost like really very fast comes into favor to the MiSTer and not to actually having the console. I mean, it's cooler to have the consoles. I'm not disputing that, but as like an economic proposition, this is a little bit better. And of course, you may say, well, it's much cheaper to just emulate that on your PC, and you'd be right. So that is true. You can always spend less money, I suppose. You can always play the games in your browser as well. Like if you search, there's a ton of emulators that work on your web browser, no problem. This is the MiSTer as it's booted up, so I can see the image both on the TV to my right here, and also on the PC here via the video capture. And this is after me running the update all script. You can find that on well, I mean, if you just type update all and MiSTer, you're gonna find the repository of the guy. I don't remember his name, which is a very handy script where you can like download the most updated versions of the cores. And what is a core essentially? A core is just something that will reprogram the FPGA to run as if it were an actual console. So you can see here I have arcade cores, computer and console cores. For arcade, you have the actual machines here, so you have the actual games, as each arcade is its own machine in a sense, even though they have like some shared architecture between them. I'm using a USB keyboard to navigate this. It is possible to navigate with with a controller as well, but not as convenient because you have some rebinds that you have to do and everything. You have computer cores here, so if you're big on, like, you know, Commodore 64, BBC Micro, Apple II, you have all the big ones here, VIC-20. And finally, I'm mostly going to cover consoles here today. And I'll show like one game for each console that I think is interesting or that you guys may find interesting. And then we can, and obviously I'll use this moving forward to do all the other rambling videos that I usually do. But now I'll have a more faithful capture of the games and everything. And as you can see here, there's a ton of stuff, right? And the reason that I bought the MiSTer at this point in time and not in the past is that specifically I wanted the N64 core to be a reality, and now it is, thanks to Robert. I don't know his surname, but developer name is Robert, and he did a very, very good job porting almost 100%, I think it's 99 point something percent of the N64 games do work in here. And there's also this turbo core that you can use if you want to, I don't know, not be as faithful, but have more FPS in a couple games. And another one that has ongoing development is the Saturn core with SRG. I think it's Sergei.Nenko, if I'm not mistaken, name of the developer. And the progress on the Saturn core has also been fantastic. And now that these two are working, this was the spark that I had to, all right, let's actually try the MiSTer, since it seems like it's going on a very good way. So let's start with the NES. I think this is a good point. And now what happens is that once you select the core, it boots the core. And now we are inside the NES essentially, right? And now here you have all your options, of course. In terms of audio and video, you have some stuff you can do here, especially for HDMI out, for analog out, which is what I'm using here. Not that much to change. And then over here you can select your game. And I guess I'll select, I don't know, let's do Castlevania, right? So select here Castlevania, and you can have your file zipped, which is really convenient. And once I select it, there we go. So I don't have any controller plugged in right now, so we'll solve that. I can use the snacks, but with the snacks I'd have to actually put an NES controller, which I'm not going to do. So I'll actually grab some of the controllers that we're going to use today. So for the Mega Drive or Genesis and Saturn, I'll be using the 8BitDo M30, which is a replica of the Saturn controller. You can use it with a cable, as I am right here. I think the delay, there's a giant spreadsheet where they show the delay for every single controller that they have tested. And if you use a cable, I think the delay is around 1 millisecond, which is like extremely low. And if you use the 2.4G adapter, it's pretty decent. I think it's like 8 to 10 milliseconds, so that's an option. I'll use for the NES and the SNES the 8BitDo. I think it's the SN30 model. I'm not sure. It's this one, right? It's a replica of the SNES pad. Once again, I'll use it with a cable. And for the arcade core that I'll show, I'll use the 8BitDo arcade stick, this one, right? And then we'll see it in action. So seeing as this is a NES game, I'll use the SNES controller for it. So all I'll do is just pick up this USB, plug it in. I'll plug it in on one of the lower ports. I can't use the NAC because it's not a native controller. And then we'll do the key mapping. So there, it's plugged in. And now what I'll do is I'll press Windows and F12 on my keyboard. And this comes up. You can do left and right here to go between miscellaneous options, NES and system. And then I'll come here to define NES buttons, and then we just map it right, left, down, up. There we go. And now this should be good. I press F12 once again. And there we go. There's Simon entering the castle. As you can see, there's no music right now, which is not ideal. So this has happened to me a couple times. So what I'll do is just reboot the MiSTer, and hopefully that goes away. Another option that you have in here, there's these auto boot cores, which I guess is just a nice interface. So there's only a couple of systems in here. So I'll select the NES, and then there's this nice cat that will show up, as you can see. And we'll do, you can also do search by name. So if I just type CAS for Castlevania, then this works. And now apparently the music's working. Yeah, it's working now. Nice. Pretty cool. So let's see the delay. So as you can see here, here's my finger, and you see as I press the button what happens on the screen. It is virtually one-to-one, like what you would expect. It is really a very, very native experience of you like playing the game as it were, and the thing happening. And so some tricks, especially on games like Mega Man X and Mario 64, that have some good experience at. And yeah, like I can do basically anything that I could do on the physical console, I managed to do in here as well without any difficulty. And it is really something to behold. If you guys saw my recent-ish video, which was on the arcade games, I played Marvel vs. Street Fighter in there with Spider-Man and Ryu. Then that's a game that I played a whole lot. And on that occasion, I was playing on my PC here using Final Board Neo and arcade stick. And to be honest with you guys, that is a game that I usually have no difficulty with a single credit, because I have played the game a whole lot. But on that occasion, as you may remember, I think I lost on the third or fourth fight. And yeah, like it was unfortunate. And now when I got the MiSTer here, I tested with that game and that specific comp. And what do you know? I want to see the game. So I think that is testament to the accuracy, or at least the lack of delay that you have in here. And yeah, like the NES core is working perfectly, as you can see. And now this is not too surprising. I mean, the NES is a pretty it's an archaic system, if you will, so it should be easier to emulate in terms of hardware. So let's go to the Super NES core. So I will do a Windows F12 here. Yeah. So just to be sure, this is not the easiest to navigate, which is why I'm explaining to you guys. So I'll do Windows F12, and then I go to core up top, and then I can select another core. So I'll select the SNES right now. There you go. Now we can select, I don't know, let's do, what about Mario World, right? Super Mario World. There we go. And basically instant. Audio quality is pristine. This is really, really nice. And now let's do the delete test once again, so you can see my finger in here. Let me put Mario on screen for you guys. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, like it is very nice to play these games on a CRT, let me tell you that. There you have it. Alright, pretty cool, pretty cool. Before we switch the controller, let me see what other core I want to show you guys. I'll show you a ton of cores, because I think it's really fun, first of all. And secondly, yeah, I think it's a nice demonstration. So let's do... I mean, the Game Boy works, and there's actually something that I wanted to show you on the Game Boy, which is the screen size. So let's do... It is remarkably different what you guys see here on the screen and what I see, and I'll show you in a bit. Let's do not Pokemon. Oh, Mario Land, right? Mario Land. So let me grab my camera and show it to you full screen. All right. So there's the TV, and as you can see, on the Game Boy course specifically, it covers this small square in here. It doesn't blow up to the whole screen. I'm not sure exactly why that is the case, but it is. And so, yeah, I mean, it's something to be aware of. But otherwise, it works. There's a delay. Yeah, basically instant. You have a palette selection here, I believe, as well, so you can turn on the Super Game Boy if you want. And you can load some borders and everything. Obviously, Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games work as well. So that is nice. Another one that I'd like to show you guys is the TurboGrafx. I'll show you one of my favorite games in the TurboGrafx. Which is Soldier Blade. I absolutely love this game. Now, for some reason, the audio on the TurboGrafx core is a lot lower than the other cores. Not exactly sure why that is, but every time I select the TurboGrafx game, I have to pump my TV sound up, and I think it is gonna happen to you guys as well, because I see that the decibels are a lot lower there. But I mean, now TurboGrafx has a lot of shmups, right? Shooters, and these are games that you can really feel the delay working against you, because you need fast reactions on these games. And like Soldier Blade is a game that I find very interesting for that sense, not only because it's a very good game, but also because once I tried playing this game on like suboptimal setups, for example, using the Wii Virtual Console or using an emulator on the PC, I really had difficulty making headway on this game. Whereas once I booted up this game here on the TV on the MiSTer and playing here, like I just blasted through I think stage 3 or 4 without a single death, and so that was really cool to see. And yeah, so there you go. TurboGrafx works as well. Let's go to the next core. So let's do the auto boot cores for now. Let's do the N64 next. Now the N64, the reason that I got this next is primarily because the N64. The N64 has a very peculiar controller, as you guys know, and I had a very hard time finding a controller that had a good analog. And then I got the Steel Bowl from Steel Stick 64, and now the durability in here is like seems to be really good. And if you had the N64 as a kid, as I did, even though the controller may not be the best for some people, I mean, I really like it. And the analog on the N64 is very particular. It's not like any other analog because it's optical. And it's not like a Hall effect or other, I don't know the mechanism that the others use, but still potentiometer maybe, who knows. And yeah, so I wanted to use the actual controller, and we can do that via the Snacks 64. So what I'll do here is I'll plug the Snacks 64 on the user I/O port on top, right? Not the regular USB. Now, you can't control the menus when you're using the snack. You have to use a keyboard. But to be honest with you, I found that using the keyboard is always preferable in my experience because I can search by name, which is nice. And so let's do, of course, Mario 64. In terms of like movement complexity, beyond the best games.
Mario.
Now, I'll say that the image quality on the CRT is perfect. On the PC, maybe not that great. And as you can see, my controller is not working because I have to come in here. I changed the pad 1 from N64 pad to snack, and now it does work. And there we have it. Now let's do the delay test. Now the snack is supposed to have the minimum amount of delay possible. And indeed, like, it's absolutely insane. It is 1-to-1. Now this core is a bit harder on the system, I suppose. Like, it's the one that I see the MiSTer getting a bit hotter than the other ones. So there's that. But otherwise, I think it's just fantastic that this works, you know. It is truly something. Let's beat this guy, right? Oh, my bad there. You can't teleport because he's gonna see you're cheating. There you have it. It is quite something to play with the original controller. It is really cool. And yeah, like the N64 core is the main reason that I got the MiSTer, actually, because I mean, it is nice to play the other consoles, don't get me wrong, like the Mega Drive and the SNES and everything. But like the N64 is one console that people have historically had a hard time emulating wherever it may be. Like with accuracy on the PC with emulators like Project 64 and then Mupen. It is, yeah, you know, it's a bit hit or miss. And yeah, like even the slowdown here is really good. And you actually want the slowdown because you want the most truthful experience, right? You want the accuracy. And there we have it. Right, let's go to the next core then. Now, the N64 core doesn't run every single game. There is a spreadsheet that you can find. Out of memory here, games that most people would expect to run but don't actually run. I think Jet Force Gemini, Conker's Bad Fur Day. I think those are should stick out the most to me. The other ones, just like some obscure games, I suppose. So now let's do some Genesis, right? We'll do core. And now for the Genesis, it's really cool because last year in August 2023, they released the Mega Drive core, which is a cycle-accurate core. I don't know why people seem to like the Motorola 64000 a whole lot. And so the precision on the Genesis core is supposedly really high. I'll connect my Saturn controller there, and we'll load. That's a Sonic too, right? There we go. It is really nice to see this. There's something here that I find good to show. in terms of like the accuracy. These waterfalls, they're a really good test on the accuracy of everything, how they're shown, and they show perfectly right here on the CRT, the dithering effect and everything. So yeah, this is really nice demonstration. The color is just popping off, man. It's really nice. What? Alright, that was a bit weird. And there we go. I mean, the Genesis is not that hard to emulate, right? So we can do one up on this one. So one core that I was really curious that it would work was actually the 32X, and you may think, well, why 32X doesn't have any actual good games? You know, you're right, but there is actually one game that I really wanted to work on my EverDrive and it never did. And now that I got this and the game actually works, it's super cool to me, which is Virtual Racing Deluxe. Because this has a special chip and everything, and so... I loved renting this game when I was younger. I rented it for the actual Genesis, right? Not the 32X. And yeah, like I find this game to be really, really nice. And there you have it. It's working beautifully, man. We could do Knuckles Chaotix as well, right? Of course. But yeah, there you have it. Virtual Racing on the 32X is actually working as well. Really nice. Now, alright, there's 2 more cores I want to show you guys before we end this. So, what do you think? Yeah, let's do 2. So one of these will be the PlayStation. So the PlayStation, since the CD-based console, what I found is that you have to load the CD and then you reset the console so it will recognize it. For the PlayStation, the controller that I'll use is this one. It's essentially the 8-bit version for the Switch. It's the Ultimate Bluetooth. I don't know. Well, it's this one. This is really nice because it has Hall effect sensors on the analog. So use this wirelessly. I'll plug in the 2.4G adapter. And I don't know, I'm not the biggest PlayStation guy, so we'll select some game here. Maybe Mega Man X4, right? I don't know, what are some good PlayStation games, guys? I need some help here. Let's do Mega Man X4. Sure. It is nice to hear this. It really is. At the boot up for the PlayStation, for the Saturn, is like, FMV cinematic, playing perfectly. What am I fighting for? And even the low video quality is like, it's an art in itself, you know? I don't want the video to be any better. It's like when you're playing a Sega CD game and the FMV is all grainy. That's what I want. That's what I want. Very cool, man. Even the loading times. And that's a lot of cutscenes. Jesus Christ. I think since I already configured this controller in the best, it didn't seem to be working, so... So... Even wirelessly, you see? It's near instant, really good. Yeah, it's working really well. I mean, I probably would want to remap the dash to the R button here, but otherwise it's really good. One thing that's particular here with the PlayStation Core, it's the only one I found, is that when I bring up the menu, the game stops, which is fine. But it's a difference that I saw. Alright, let's do the Saturn Core now. Now the Saturn Core was the second big one. I was waiting for it to work before. Let me plug in the Saturn controller now. Was another one that I was waiting patiently because it is very hard and expensive to get a Saturn setup going. You know, you need to get the console. Most of the imports are all from Japan, and yeah, like it's an endeavor in itself. And what we'll do here is we need to load the BIOS first, so I'll load in the boot BIOS here. I have the American BIOS going. Once again, it's really cool to see this. And now finally we'll select a game. And I don't know, are you guys feeling? Radiant Silvergun? Sonic Car. I have to do Sonic Car. Come on. I have to listen to some TJ Davis here. The boot up screens, man, they're just too good. Oh yeah, so as you can see, it's not working here, and I know why that is, because you have to see, so my Sonic R distribution is for USA, right? So I have to go back in here, I have to select the region, USA, and then I reset the console. So I have to match the region to the game you select. So if I had to select the Japanese game, I'd have to select the Japan region. But yeah, once that's done. Now the Saturn Core is not perfect, especially on the intros and FMVs, it desyncs a little bit. But otherwise, all the games I've tested so far seem to be working very well. Now Saturn emulation seems like one of the hardest ones to do because of the two VDP chips and everything. And so every time I try to play this game, for example, I had the hardest time on emulators, Madnafan, what have you. And now in here, the one I've done the best, every time I tried playing Sonic R specifically here on the MiSTer, it felt very intuitive to me. This is one of the worst good games that you can. I have such a hard time at that corner. Whoops. Man, this game is so bad, but at the same time it is so good. It is it's interesting. Like, objectively the game is bad. But you know, man, aim is so slow, Jesus Christ. So there you have it. The Saturn card is working perfectly, man. This is really nice. If you needed a reason to get the MiSTer, there you have it. Listening to TJ Davis. Let's do one. Which is gonna be the arcade course. I'll do a full reboot and now I'll connect the arcade stick here. And now there's several cores that have been ported by the Jotego team, CPS1, CPS2. There's also the more old school arcade titles like Pac-Man, Galaga, what have you. So those are also available. And now what I found is that the precision that I had controlling here with the stick on MiSTer was a lot higher than what I had on the emulator on the PC. I don't know exactly why, maybe it's placebo. But me trying the moves here on the stick was a lot easier to do here on the MiSTer. Now playing this on the CRT is just really cool, man. There's some overscan. There's a little bit that I lose on all edges. Maybe I need to check on the configuration of the CRT, but otherwise it works well. See, just very precise. There we go. Pretty cool, man. So, there you have it. If you're more of a fan of other arcade games, you also got those as well. So we can go and select some. Where's Goriga? Now this one that's interesting because it's Tate or Tate mode, right? So what I think will happen, yeah, it's completely flipped here on the CRT. So it's to the right. Let me show you. And this should be expected, right? I forgot how much better Goriga takes to boot up. So yeah, unless you wanna tilt your head or play horizontally, this is gonna be the experience. Now this is one case. I think that those PVMs that are square, there are a little box that you can turn around would be really interesting. I think I need to remap here. Yeah, basically it works, but this is one game that maybe I would play on the on the HDMI out, I think, because playing on the CRT here is gonna be a bit of a challenge. And there you have it. That is the MiSTer, and my initial impressions are really, really good. And from what I've tested so far, I mean, there was some occasions where the audio went out, but after rebooting the core, it was fine. Otherwise, in terms of inconsistencies, not really that much. In terms of like differences between the MiSTer emulation and what happens on the actual hardware, so far I haven't seen anything. Maybe if I, of course, testing more in other games, some things may show up, but otherwise the convenience of having like the one thing plugged into the TV and not having to like keep messing with cables and everything, and especially the cables are fine. The thing is like having to get the actual systems, having to get the EverDrives, having to mod the consoles for RGB output. That is like a ton of stuff and a ton of cost that really adds up. And not having to do that and have a very precise, a very low latency experience on the CRT with the MiSTer has proven, so far at least, very, very nice to experience. And yeah, I'll keep testing with the MiSTer. The future videos that will pop up here on the channel will use it for sure. And so as I ramble here on the microphone about whatever subject it may be, I will be playing on the MiSTer from now on. And yeah, it's really nice to not be on emulation on the PC anymore, because I'm a bit of a purist in that sense. Maybe not the extreme sense of the purism argument that you actually have to have the actual cartridge and everything. I guess if you have the means for it, that's nice, but I guess we all have to find our fun, right? In whatever way it is possible. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.